यह ज्ञान की दुनिया, यहाँ दुनिया का ज्ञान, कृषि विज्ञान और अनुसंधान, नए क्षितिज अब छू रही शिक्षा, ऑनलाइन पढ़ाई संग लग रही कक्षा.
I welcome you all for the panel discussion 2 of this conference. The title of the discussion will be Making Agricultural Education Future Ready with 3 E's: Emerging Technologies, Employability and Entrepreneurship. I request the co-chairs and the panelists to come to the podium. Pardon? The co-chairs for this session are Dr. Suresh Kumar Chowdhury, Deputy Director General, Natural Resource Management, ICR, and Dr. Deep Singh, Vice Chancellor and Director, ICR National Dairy Research Institute, Karnal. And the moderator for the session will be Mr. Gunanand Shukla. All panelists are requested to come to the dais. The panelists are Dr. Biju C. Deka, Vice Chancellor, Assam Agricultural University, Jorhat; Dr. Nazir Ahmad Ganai, Vice Chancellor, Squast, Kashmir; Dr. Inderjit Singh, Vice Chancellor, Gadwas, Ludhiana; Professor Atul Koshla, Founder and Vice Chancellor, Shulini University, Himachal Pradesh; Dr. Prabhat Kumar, Horticulture Commissioner. We have information that he may not be able to make it. Dr. Sudha Rao, Executive Director, Karnataka Knowledge Commission, Bangalore; Dr. Inu Rana, Senior Business Advisor, Western Sydney University, Australia, will be joining us on online. Dr. Perry Den Brog, Professor, Department of Social Science, Wageningen University, Netherlands, will also join us online, and he was in the last session also. Dr. David Krabel, Professor Emeritus, Ohio State University, Washington, D.C., USA, will also join online. Sir, the title of the discussion is Making Agricultural Education Future Ready with the 3 E's, that is Emerging Technologies, Employability and Entrepreneurship. It has been kept thoughtfully because emerging technology addresses the quality part of this project development objective, where all the partners under this project, I am taking this project itself as a test case, though we can extend the discussion for generalization for the benefit of the global audience, that leveraging technology for learning outcome and teaching effectiveness, augmentation or enhancement, that has been supported under the project. Then when it comes to employability, that addresses the relevance part of the project development objective, where the main gap perceptible is that between knowledge and skill, which has been often raised by the industry stakeholders during our interfaces or interaction with them during the formulation of the project. And accordingly, we have made provision for investment on non-academic higher order soft skills in a large way. Then that is about the employability. The best example for us, more than agriculture, it is engineering, where nearly 16 lakh graduates are being produced every year in India, and where the industry is not able to get employable, qualified graduates with skill, and their need is hardly 5 lakh. The same thing may be applicable for agriculture. That should not be the case, and that this panel is going to discuss. And the next is this exposure of entrepreneurship of our undergraduate and postgraduate students. There also we have made enough provision for this investment. And all our sensitization, we have given enough information on business entrepreneurship of undergraduate students under IDP, and science entrepreneurship of PG students and caste. Besides, we also give live examples on social entrepreneurship, even spiritual entrepreneurship, and political entrepreneurship. The project gives enormous platform and exposure to the concept of entrepreneurship. So the session will be chaired by Dr. S.K. co-chaired by Dr. S.K. Chowdhury, who is our DDG, NRM, and he is also Fellow of National Academy of Agricultural Sciences and an awardee of the prestigious ICR Rafi Ahmad Kidwai. And in his illustrious career, he has received numerous other accolades in the field of soil physics, agricultural water management, management of salt-affected soils, and poor quality water, climate change impact on agriculture. The next co-chair for this session is Dr. Deep Singh, who is Vice Chancellor and Director, ICR National Dairy Research Institute, Karnal. He is also Fellow of the National Academy of Science, India, and also Fellow of National Academy of Dairy Sciences. His fields of work are molecular endocrinology, functional genomics, and system biology, milk exosome, and their use as a delivery vehicle, and cell and nano biosensor development. The moderator for this panel discussion is Dr. Gunanand Shukla. He is presently the Director of Agriculture and Natural Resource Practices at PricewaterhouseCoopers Limited. He is leading the implementation of projects ranging from agricultural transformation to program implementation in areas such as agriculture education, agriculture supply chain, and reforms. He has vast experience in associating through his enterprises of all multilateral financing agencies funded projects. With his engagement in promoting private investments in agriculture, he has taken to new initiatives in the sector. The rapporteurs for the session are Dr. Mohammad Asfar al-Haq and Ms. Sapnam Nigam of ICR ISRI. With this, I hand over the mic to the chair for further proceedings.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ram Sundaram. Namaste to everyone. I welcome you all in this very important panel discussion on 3 E's, which are just now explained. And we have excellent panelists for this. And we have Dr. Dhir Singh as co-chair also, moderator Shuklaji, and we are supported by 9 panelists, where we'll be discussing on emerging technologies, employability, and entrepreneurship, which are very, very important aspects and pillars if we want to go in the area of blended learning ecosystems and making them functional. So what we will do now would not have much time. Already it is 1:10 and 2 o'clock. By 2 o'clock, we have to wind up the session. If that is so, then in next 40-45 minutes, we shall try to finish everything. And for that, I will broadly rely on the panelists to be very brief, focused, and also precise in giving their views. So without wasting much time in making introductory remarks, I would request our moderator, Shri Shuklaji, so to please start inviting the panelists for their views. Dr. Shukla.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Ramasundaram and Chairman Sir, for giving those starting remarks. This is indeed a very important panel and very distinguished panelists discussing on probably one of the most important topics in the conference, which is futuristic, which is talking about the future of agriculture education and making agriculture education future ready. And it's much more important when we see the 3 levers it is trying to touch upon. Importantly, emerging technologies, employability, entrepreneurship. Very briefly to touch upon, PwC and me have been working with ICR from the last 3-4 years in NAHEP, and the way National Agriculture Higher Education Project has tried to touch upon the agri-education system to make the education system quality-driven and relevant has been immense. And this conference and this panel discussion also is a way towards that, how to make the entire agri-education system quality-driven and relevant today as well as for the future. So with that thought, I think I will thank the organizers for requesting such a distinguished panelist for this discussion. And I assume that apart from Dr. Prabhat Kumar, all other panelists are there. I think that's the only dropout because of some important meeting he had. Okay, we also do not have Dr. Inderjeet Singh. I'm just noting that for the sake of the events here. Apart from that, we have a very rich panel, distinguishing from vice chancellors, from academicians, from people who have moved from policy making into education system, who are moving from consulting and other rich backgrounds to agri-education or related education system. We'll like to learn from them. So I think Dr. David Crable has joined us online. Yep, thanks for being there. Let me, for the benefit of the house, I'll just put a brief intro to him. Dr. Crable is the Professor Emeritus, Ohio State University and Baltimore area, USA. And Dr. Crable's recent research studies include studies on household poverty, household savings, government decentralization, primary and secondary education, and adaptation to climate change. He has a lot of experience of working in Africa as well, and he is a Fulbright scholar at Marquette University, and an associate editor or member of editorial boards of several academic journals. With this rich background, I think what we look forward to your rich views on this, and we would like to learn from you few ways of how the agriculture higher education system at ICRAU may be reconfigured or re-engineered to enhance the students' employability, and how do we prepare them for evolving job paradigm in agriculture? Because we have been probably a witness to the most challenging and changing times, may it be disruptions like COVID or civil strifes and others. So in these, a lot of discourse in labor market, the job market has changed. Also the demands of the industries have changed. In this changing paradigm, with your rich experience, we'd like to understand and know what agriculture education needs to evolve and where we need to re-engineer and reconfigure education system. Over to you, Dr. Crable.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Can you please give some guidance, given the number of speakers and the amount of time, how long should I be speaking?
I think a brief time of around 7 minutes would be fair enough for us.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you very much for that background. Indeed, there has been a dramatic structural change in the agricultural and food systems in many countries in the world, including India. And I think one of the most important ways in which agricultural education can become more relevant is to adopt a focus on value chains in our educational programs. Value chains, of course, involve raw material supply, processing, transportation, storage, and quality standards. And value chains evolve through changes in consumer preferences, the size of the market, and technology. These changes in the value chains create demands for new skills and knowledge, and this requires change in our teaching programs in three major areas: in curricula, pedagogy, and student experience. First of all, let me address the changes in curricula. The skills and knowledge that are needed by university graduates working in today's rapidly changing value chains cannot generally be segmented into the same knowledge disciplines and departments by which universities have traditionally been organized. Rather, what is needed is cross-pollination of disciplines to achieve a practical, holistic, and multidisciplinary understanding of today's agricultural and food systems. This cross-pollination across disciplines can be achieved through cross-disciplinary teaching and research. Now, let me address changes in pedagogy. Employers throughout the world today want university graduates that they hire to have problem-solving and communication skills. And many surveys that I have seen throughout the world, employers identify the lack of these skills, that is, the lack of problem-solving and communication skills, as the greatest deficiencies of current university training. To address this concern, universities need to become better informed about and sensitive to how students learn and to adapt more active methods of instruction and make less use of the traditional lecture format. When students graduate and become employees, they are generally expected to be active rather than passive in carrying out their duties. The capacity for self-discovery of knowledge, rather than simply having knowledge poured into the student's head, this capacity for self-discovery of knowledge should be developed and encouraged in the classroom, even in the teaching of technical subjects. And this can be done by the use of pedagogical methods that emphasize critical thinking, problem solving, and writing and oral communication. Active learning occurs when students are required to discover, organize, and use knowledge, rather than simply receiving knowledge that has been packaged by the teacher. In active learning, it is often said, the teacher is a guide on the side rather than the sage on the stage. Now, the third area in which changes need to occur is in student experience. To increase the employability of graduates, they need to acquire practical experience of real-world environments and conditions while they are still students. Experience can be acquired through tours and visits, guest lectures, internships, group and individual projects carried out by students, and various kinds of simulation experiences. Mr. Moderator, I think at this point, given the number of people, I'm going to turn the microphone back to you.
Thanks for helping me in that. So kind of you, because I was actually about to request you. And very pertinent points made here, which are probably touching on the value chain approach, plus touching on curricula and pedagogy. Thanks for that. I think when you talk about the critical thinking, problem-solving approach, we do have our next panelist who probably brings in a rich experience of having worked in the private industry also, and then heading probably one of the very important universities as Vice Chancellor and founder at Himachal Pradesh Shulni University. We have Professor Atul Khosla with us. And Mr. Khosla has started his career with McKinsey & Company and world's leading consulting firm. In the last 25 years of being in the industry, has worked across the globe, across, North America, Europe, Australia, and many other. He was the CEO and global partner in Oliver Wyman and leading international firms like this. So with this rich experience of having seen both sides, the industry as well as now an institution, we like to learn and derive some experience from you on the scenario where the future of jobs is changing drastically from primary jobs to tertiary, quaternary, service-oriented jobs. How do you see and propose the required adaptation in agri-education system to keep up to the market? You have been on both the sides, sir, and we'd like to learn more on that aspect, please. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shukla. Truly appreciate, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. So I will speak about this topic based on two broad experiences I've had over the last 25 years of my career. The first is serving large agri-based businesses. So I used to be the primary advisor to the board of Syngenta, and I spent several years in Basel, for example. And now, of course, in the middle of education as Vice Chancellor of Shulini, and we also have an agri program and an agri college at Shulini. So I'm going to make, before I build my thesis, I'm going to make two strong statements. I think the first one is about how the world is changing. We live in a world of serious disruption. Never before in the history of mankind, and I repeat, never before in the history of mankind, so many people will have to be skilled or reskilled in such a short period of time. We were speaking about ChatGPT, we were speaking about AI, we're speaking about new technologies coming in. And the challenge we have is that many of us, in fact, most of us sitting in this room, do not even know what the future is going to look like, which basically means we have to skill and upskill our students, but we don't even know what we have to upskill them about. We do know that it has to be around new technologies. It cannot be things that we have been doing in the past, and we have to do it very, very rapidly. I think that's the first point I'd like to make. I think the second point I'd like to make is that the biggest opportunities in the world, are going to be in agri and rural businesses. I mean, that's a fact, which basically means that the role that all of us will have to play in terms of developing talent will be humongous. So what are the slight changes we need to make in the way we deliver education? And I'm going to talk about 5 things very quickly, and then I'm going to talk about the opportunities that will probably be there in the agribusinesses that exist. I think the first thing, which is very, very important, we all understand, is the need for transdisciplinary education. And this is my pitch to the regulators and the policy makers sitting over here. I think the biggest challenge I see is the way our existing regulation, ICR regulation, exists. For example, we talk about transdisciplinary education, but if you're a non-agriculture graduate, you're not even considered as a faculty in the College of Agriculture. I think these are the type of things we need to break. We need to break the barriers around asking ourselves, who would be new teachers? An agriculture engineer, for example, in the future is not going to be someone who understands tractors, but is going to be someone who understands smart agriculture, understands technology, understands AI. So the first thing is about transdisciplinary education, but we all have to be open when you think about transdisciplinary education to start including other faculties of the university. I think from an agriculture university perspective, most universities in the world are now becoming multidisciplinary, so I'm sure you guys are looking at that. The second point is deeply tech-driven. When I talk to my Dean of Agriculture, I can tell you that he doesn't understand technology. So how do we make sure that our faculty inside our universities are deeply tech-driven, they understand the big changes that are happening, they're exposed to that, they move beyond agriculture. Agriculture is not just about crops, but it's about managing the complete supply chain, starting from even understanding the planning of crops, and finally it's about the supply chain of delivering food to the masses. It needs to be skill-centric. We spoke about it, and I'm not going to talk much about it, but the skills will be very different. I think they will be more technology-centric than the way they are today. And finally, I think the way we deliver education will have to be entrepreneurship and research-centric. And I'm going to take a minute over here what I mean by this. We know that assessments are going to fundamentally change with platforms like ChatGPT coming in. So one of the things that we are experimenting and some other universities are experimenting is how do you now deliver education when everything is out there on the computer? And it's going to be by saying, can we say that in semester 1, you will start a crop business? Go out and build that, which means understand end-to-end what that means. Semester 2, build a food business. Semester 3, go out and build and brand your product, et cetera, which means real projects and not just secondary projects, but that should be the primary part of the curriculum, which is becoming an entrepreneur, going out and building businesses, going out and doing new things, which typically is not there. Bringing research to the undergraduate level. How do you make sure that real problem solving is happening by bringing and solving problems by undergraduate students and not pushing them to masters and PhD. So these are the things I think in education we need to do. Coming back to the type of opportunities that exist very quickly, I've got 7 broad areas which I think are going to change the future of India and the world. The first is smart agriculture. Agriculture will not be in uncontrolled environments. I think we'll have to move to controlled agriculture in controlled environments. Are we ready for that? Huge opportunities there. So apart from my work in Shulini, I'm also a venture capitalist. I'm the advisor to a fund called Angur Capital, and we are investing in businesses. And I have to mention over here that lots of opportunities in agriculture, lots of new ideas are coming in, but most of these are not from agri students. These are not students who have studied agriculture, but from other fields. So can we make agriculture sexy for the, sorry for this word, for the agriculture students so that they can push their spectrum onto this? I think the second, of course, is around processed foods. The largest companies of the world are in processed foods, whether it's Kraft, whether it's even companies like Coca-Cola or Heinz or others. Biotech is a big area. Syngenta was a client of mine, and a large part of the work they were doing, they moved from pesticides to being a biotech company. There are huge opportunities in biotech coming in. Water. Water is going to be the biggest issue. So I don't know whether you guys know, but 30% of Syngenta's research budget is today going into water. They have a big project going, which they call a 20-year project around how do we ensure that water is available to everyone. Without water, we can't have crops. So there'll be opportunities around water, water purification in terms of businesses. Tech, and I'm going to give one small example of a business I just funded, and I was speaking about this. Confluence of weather information, satellite imagery, and crops to come up with protocols for creating productivity, increased productivity of crops. And this particular entity has got productivity enhancement of 4 to 5 times what nearby farmers have. So that's AI-driven. Moving to high value and high shelf life products. So if you think about agriculture, if you think about products, think about 2 spectrums of metrics. Is the product high value and is the product high shelf life? If you can match the 2 together, you will make your farmers rich. We will make our farmers rich. An example which has not been looked at right now is ghee, for example, A2 ghee. It's very expensive. It's 3 to 5,000 rupees a kg. If you can deliver productive A2 ghee, it's a superfood. It could be on the shelves of every supermarket of the world, but someone has to go about and do it. It's already happened in Champagne. It's happened with Parmigiana cheese, for example, from Italy. So can India create such GI-centric products which are of high value? There are supply chain-centric businesses that will come up, which is managing the supply chain. We're speaking about the food chain, of course. We're talking about the cold chain. There'll be people building large businesses over here. And finally, it's about branded food. So our students will have to understand branding and marketing in a sizable way. So can the next Kraft or the next Mars come out of India? I think these are questions we have to ask. I think the fundamental question I'm mentioning over here is, can we fundamentally change the way agriculture happens? Education happens, so that our students move from becoming job seekers to job givers and truly go out and exploit the entrepreneurial ventures that exist in the world today. Thank you very much, and I'll happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Professor Khosla. I think this was very much the way we talk in agri market-led production. Probably the time is ripe to talk about market-led education. And that market-led education, the theme, the way Professor Khosla put up is probably one of the most eminent and important one when we talk about the skilling, when we talk about technology and the opportunities which are there in future. We totally are on the same thought, Professor Khosla, on this, and we will take keep on this thought, and if time permits, we'll come back to you to get more on this. Moving on from here, I think we have with us Vice Chancellor SKUST Kashmir, Dr. Nazir Ahmad Ganai. Dr. Ganai has been a very celebrated professor and joined university in '93. He has led in capacities like Associate Director Research, Founder and Head Division of Biotechnology, Head Division of Animal Genetics and Breeding, Coordinator Star College Program, DBT, MOST, Government of India. He has also been in charge of Cattle Research Station, SQST, and I have been privileged enough to also to visit the university in his presence. And all I can say that unlike other universities where we talk of teaching, research, and education, this university is also mandated with innovation and entrepreneurship. And that is one of the important levers we are talking today, that in agri-education system, how do we instill entrepreneurship? And the way Dr. Ganai has been leading SQST in establishing facilitative digital infrastructure to promote academic, research, and entrepreneurship excellence, we, sir, here want to learn from you what are those pathways you suggest for promoting entrepreneurial mindset in agri-education system. What I mean here, sir, is that how do we help the students shift from looking at agri-higher education as a job machine to entrepreneurship model? Look forward to your views, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shukla. Before I actually come to just answer have a specific answer to this question, I would like to just put it in context why it's more important in Indian context than elsewhere in the world. Because India is now the most populous country of the world. And with 1.4 billion people, every fifth almost in the world is an Indian. And 65% of that population is below the age of 35 years. So that means it could prove to be a very huge dividend for us, demographic dividend for us. And that 65 million percent means almost 1 billion, 1,000 million. And it is more than the entire population of the US or the Russia or the Australia putting together, which accounts to only around 600 million. And the workforce in India, which we see today, is almost 500 million. But the challenge with us is that 95% of that workforce in India is not formally skilled. And half of that workforce actually works in agriculture. And despite all the kind of the advancements we have made, it is with only those very small percentage of the skilled people in India. So that is where the opportunity lies. If we are able to just produce those skilled, trained human power, and at the same time have those kind of short vocational courses with which we can train the people, that means the opportunities for India. With 5% we have reached from nowhere to roaming on the Mars and Moon, and with 95% we can do tremendously good. But that's a big challenge. Fortunately, National Education Policy came in 2020, and besides many other things, some of the things which are related to us here is that it is focusing on what we call as the outcome-based education. In India, we have been just following a kind of an education system wherein we would churn those qualified but unemployable graduates. And we talk about skilled and educated kind of the graduates, whom I believe from my perspective and my university, we call them as the next gen global leaders. And at the same time, it focuses on skilling those 500 million unskilled people in India with those short skill courses, vocational courses. And at the same time, the National Education Policy also talks about paying due respect to the diversity, the equity, and inclusion, besides many other things. And it also talks about that how should we have our education and training system, which is more flexible, it's more choice-based, and it is self-paced, which is in context to it. It's only the vision under the National Education Policy which have been given. And it's now the job of all the universities to translate this vision into reality, because the country has set a big goal for itself, that by 2047, we want to be the knowledge superpower of the world. And per se, we have to be a knowledge economy by 2047. And India also sets at a big target for it that we should be, by 2047, the third biggest economy of the world. That means the educational institutions have to play a tremendous role for it. And what I would just be now coming to answer that question as to how do we do that? For that, we need to just create an ecosystem in our universities, schools, and colleges, wherein that ecosystem would produce those next gen, I would say, the global leaders. And as on date, the graduates which we produce, they hardly find placement in high-paid industries. What we have been just pursuing, or rather we have also come up with a model of education in our university. I will be just highlighting a few of the points. Is that we first need to just reorient our education system, wherein we need to just have some, which make it more creative, innovative, and entrepreneurial. Make our students more entrepreneurial and industry-ready students. So for that, it's a big task. How do we reorient our education system? That means we have some stakeholders to the agricultural education. The farmer is one of the stakeholders. The industry is one of the stakeholders. The consumer is the stakeholder. The environment is another stakeholder of ours, because we don't want to just move with agriculture and damaging the environment. That means we have to continuously take a feedback from our stakeholders and see that what are the challenges with those stakeholders, and accordingly we design our curriculum. And that means we are trying to identify the problems on the ground, and then through education we are trying to find the solutions and then coming up with innovations. And at the same time, with that kind of a curriculum, we have to see that how do we rope in those advanced skills into our curriculum, the skills of the 21st century. as has been said by my fellow panelist, then agriculture in the coming days is going to be not put at the risk of the environment and the nature. It has to be a controlled environment. So when we talk about agriculture, it has to be a controlled environment, because if we can't just reverse climate change at a quick pace, but we have to adapt to the climate change, it's only the technology which can help it. And that is the technology, the artificial and the machine learning, the blockchain technology, the drones, the robotics, because the goal is that how do we control the environment, how do we build the resource use efficiency, how do we reduce the cost of production, and how do we have those good agricultural practices. And for that, we have to actually prepare our workforce for the future. And one very important reason for training the workforce in these kind of advanced technologies of the 21st century is that, as per the estimates, in next 5, 10, 15 years, half of the workforce in the private sector would become obsolete, because it is changing very fast. And there would be a big vacuum in the next 10, 15 years. Who are the ones who are going to take that space, which would be, because the companies will no longer would afford to keep that unskilled workforce with them. Universities have a tremendous role to bridge that gap. And one thing, one of my fellow colleagues was again saying that another thing is what's very important is building those kind of skills, what we call the soft skills, the communication, the leadership, especially the time and the resource management, and the problem-solving skills. And of course, correctly said that it has to be interdisciplinary. We should also have to have the industry tie-ups in the industry, in our education system. I'm talking about that ecosystem in the university. And wherein we have some sponsored research with the industry, have industrial trainings, and also have the faculty from the industry on board with the universities, what we call as the professors of practice. I am pleased to share with you that I have one, he is a social entrepreneur. He is on the board of my university as an adjunct faculty, but he's a 10th grade fail. He has not passed his 10th examination, but he's a very successful social entrepreneur. And he is my adjunct faculty. That is how we have to change the mindset. Not necessarily that a faculty on our university should necessarily be a doctoral person with some big qualifications. And I was also just, and at the same time, I believe that many of my colleagues, fellow Vice Chancellor, Honorable Vice Chancellor here, Government of India has also come up with another very ambitious policy, that is the National Innovation and Startup Policy for the students and the faculty. We need to just have that policy, and I believe that we are the first among the agriculture universities who have adopted that policy. And the outcome of that policy is that in the last 3 years, we have now 10 startups. Out of that, 4 startups are of the faculties, of our, who are on the rolls of this university. It was almost unheard in a university system. A faculty would be serving in the university and would be also doing some business. I said that if a faculty has a very good innovation and he has also published very good quality research and has also a published patent which he is otherwise hanging on the wall, and then not making it commercialized, not commercializing his technology. So I said that why not? It is better to that allow him to commercialize it. So that policy provides provision for that. That means that's now legal for us, and same is the case with our students. And at the same time, in that ecosystem, every university should have an innovation and incubation center. So on one side, when we are making our students more creative, more innovative, more entrepreneur, they have to be given some kind of hand-holding into that innovation and incubation center, but it's also started happening. And what we are also thinking at our place, once we have that kind of a curriculum, and that kind of skill training and that kind of hand-holding for the students who become the startups, because India is targeting itself to be the, of course, we are the 3rd largest startup. We also need to have one agri-tech startup parks for the universities.
So may I request you to be a bit brief, please?
Quickly, I would say, so a student who has proven, validated his concept as now becoming a startup, having a student startup, we need to provide him a space wherein he will establish his business. So the requirement through this discussion and when we'll be writing our policy is to see that how do we create that complete ecosystem of actually converting a student who was coming raw to us into an innovative, creative, and an entrepreneurial and an industry-ready graduate. And for him, this is the right forum where we can debate and see that how it can happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ganai, and I'm very sure the plethora of ideas and innovations which have happened under his leadership in the universities might go for hours here, but for the interest of time, I had to request him to curtail that ecosystem approach, what he introduced to us in probably promoting a lot of entrepreneurship, policy preambles to be changed where a faculty or a student can also become a partner in innovation or an entrepreneurship are very remarkable points. Thanks for bringing them upfront. Because today when we see that even as per the National Skills Report of 2022, the employability status of the country is still at 46%, which has increased from say 36 to 46% in a gap of 6 years. That's a bit of concern for the whole education system, that where are we heading to? I mean, we are creating people who are not employable or are employable to particular standards. I also recall from my first speaker, the panelist who was also talking about non-technical skills, problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills. They are also becoming an important ingredient of employability. So just to dive deep into the problem of policy preamble in education system and to venture a bit further into it, we have our next panelist in the row, Dr. Sudha Rao. Sudha Rao ma'am is a professor and former Vice Chancellor of Karnataka State Open University. She is the Director and Member Secretary of Karnataka Knowledge Commission, Fulbright Scholar to Howard University, USA, Senior Advisor to All India Council for Technical Education from 92 to 96. She has been a CEO to SDM Education Society, Bangalore. She served as Professor and Head of Higher Education and Education Policy. She has presented several papers and collaborated with leading education experts across the globe, to name a few countries like Middle East, Canada, Philippines, etc. Her contribution to higher education in India through national level regulatory bodies like UGC, AICTE, ICAR, NCTE, NAC, DC, IGNOU, MHRD, ICAR, and NAM, Hyderabad, and other national and international agencies and other state government is well established. She also is a member in the AHEPC of NAHEP, and we are always benefited by her rich experience and presence. Today, ma'am, we will like to learn further on that, and we'd like to understand, while employment figures emerge as an imminent challenge for policymakers, what structural shift you would like to guide us for in agri-education, where this unemployment figures shifts to employability? How do we enhance that, and what policy preambles are required for that? Over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. Namaskar sabhi ko. The advantage I have today is I'm not an agriculture scientist and I'm not a scientist. And the second advantage I have, and because of that I have a different perception which you have to digest, and that is the advantage I have today. I started my career with doing PhD in Bloom's taxonomy and moved on to went as Fulbright Scholar and then became a lecturer in policy planning institution and then became a Vice Chancellor of a state university, moved to advisor as a AICTE and contributed for policy making of 1986 and UGC and so on and so forth. So I will be back and forth this way, that way, I may kindly be excused. But I must tell with confidence that since yesterday I have been sitting here and I observed everybody's presentation, so I don't have to repeat much of the things because they have been so lucidly presented by all the scientists, be it data, be it technology, be it blending, be it bringing it together, and so on and so forth. So my advantage is that I don't have to speak about those things again. I straight away jump into the basic critical items that has to be included, if at all it has to be a blending of education. The most difficult thing in the education is the curriculum design. And it is the curriculum and syllabus, examination and certification. These are the key factors that makes the system strong, that makes the system quality oriented, that makes the system to fulfill all those requirements that are elucidated in the Constitution. We must also remember that education is a state subject and it's only in the concurrent list at the national level only for quality and standards. So all states have their own powers to implement or not to implement to how we implement, and what for they can take off. All these freedom is there with the states and certainly not with the center. But yes, certain through its funding, central can operate through indirect means and directly to some extent as far as the quality and standard is concerned. The second thing that I must also bring in here, that it is very important to understand while curriculum designing and planning and implementing, that is the most difficult part, and why we have not been able to change the systems so long, so far, and systems continue to repeat and replace, copy from others and bring in their institution. It's all because it's an easy job. But if one has to do creative curriculum, one has to do blending of skill, knowledge, and the needed behavior. That means that you are planning your annual calendar, annual timetable, and the teaching, learning. Everything has to be planned differently than what it is there till today. If anybody thinks I'll just make a patchwork and do the corrections, certainly one is going to spoil the education than do the blending. Blending is a tougher job because in the 86 policy also we did talk about skill education to intervene, and you know the success stories of vocational education. It could not succeed because it was skill to be implemented. When the skill started implementing, it became in different institutions, different type of skills. In best of the schools, the parents did not allow the carpentry to be introduced. And in the worst of the schools, so the carpentry was introduced, and in best of the schools, the computer science was introduced 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So there are very many things that operate in a subtle manner, and these are to be taken care of by the policymakers and planners of agriculture education as well. But I must also say the present situation is the best situation because we are at the right time. And we must also thank God, because wherever when the human being is little slow, God takes its own decision, and that's how he brought Corona and made everybody, anybody be familiar with, you call it mobiles, or you call it computers, or whatever you call it. He gave a chance to everybody, and today all the primary schools also operate online. So when we know this, and similarly, I must also say that it's very important to understand while making the policy. The present policy is excellent in the sense that they have brought so many things which are certainly superb. Let us understand that when we are thinking of blending education and introducing it in all institutions, we are dealing with a different population. Our population, even if we take 16 to 60 age group, we must remember the population we have in India is of different age group we have to cover, different geographical location. When I talk about geographical location, I mean about Wi-Fi connection, electricity, water, and roads, and transportation, and whatnot. All these have to get into the system to facilitate blending thing. Similarly, I must also say financial position. Maybe that the government may give finance, but how many people in the institutions are well versed in usage of finance in the right manner? It's easy for using the financial things for the infrastructure development and training and resource buying, but academic things are much more difficult, and to use academic knowledge, skill, using financial input to those aspects is a tougher job. You know, in India, it's very difficult to get the right expert for the right purposes. We do get many people with qualification, but to get the right person for the right job is the toughest in India today. That's where we talked about teacher training and all that. But who talked about the training of trainers? Teacher training is easy, but the trainers have to be trained first. Where is the institution to train the trainers? Like We see Masuri Academy for IAS officer. Every 5 years they have to go back again. You go to developed countries, a teacher has to go back again and write a test to get the license. What kind of facility we have in India? We don't have anything like that. But we are better off in the sense because we have a large population, we have a variety of people who could do many things, and we have the quickest capacity to learn and unlearn. I must also say that it's very important in the blending process. How are we going to blend? What are we going to blend? The blending process is tough because how much of what, where, when, and who does it? You may leave as a Vice Chancellor, I had been a Vice Chancellor, I may leave it to the Board of Studies in the department. The department invites their own friends, and their friends become the curriculum designers. And what gets designed ultimately is the convenient portion for the teachers to teach. Who includes the difficult portion? Who gets into that toughest area where blending is possible and it could be done and bring out success? And then all the more important is to keep in mind, it's not the output. Output in the sense the number of students, passing number of students, getting certification, degree, no, that is of no use. It has to be outcome. Outcome-based education is the one that brings success to the education sector, and if that has to be done, blending things have to be designed in such a way focused towards outcome education. I must also say that while designing, it's necessary to keep in mind how much of knowledge, how much of skills, and how much of behavior that is needed to. I remember having asked a question, a training group, selection recruitment group that I met in the waiting lounge. I asked them, what are you going to ask for these students? They nicely told, Madam, हमें इनसे कुछ नहीं पूछना. इनका सारा जन्म पत्री तो हमारे पास आ चुका है. हम सिर्फ इंसान से मिलते हैं, उसका बिहेवियर देखते हैं, उसकी एटीट्यूड देखते हैं. नौकरी तो उसको मिलता है जिसका एटीट्यूड सही हो, मोटिवेशन सही हो और बिहेवियर सही हो. और उसकी पैकेज हम जब तक ब्लेंडेड एजुकेशन में नहीं मिलाएंगे तो employability and employment remains a challenge forever. अभी तक नौकरी उन्हीं को मिला है, सारे फर्स्ट रैंकर्स को कोई नौकरी नहीं मिला है. नौकरी हर तरह के लोगों को मिला है. और सक्सेस भी अगर हम देखते जाएंगे, किसी का बायोडाटा निकाल के, एक छोटा एक्सरसाइज मैंने किया था, 100 बायोडाटा कलेक्ट किया था हिंदुस्तान में बड़े लोगों का, तो बहुत कम फर्स्ट रैंकर्स उसमें मिले थे मुझे. एंड दैट्स द थिंग. फ्रेंड्स, one last thing that I would like to say before I close. See, the knowledge application, Bloom's taxonomy 6 categories. We must remember that the first 3 category, everybody puts the question for certification. Be it knowledge, be it remember, be it understand. ये 3 तक तो हर एक की क्वेश्चन पेपर मिल जाएंगे. But when it comes to application, analysis, synthesis and evaluation, you don't get question papers where questions involved for these categories. And until and unless these categories are taken into consideration and asked such questions, it is not possible to blend the thing. Blending means application. Blending means analyzing. It is necessary that these things are to be included. Well, I can go on and on because that's my field. As I have received the warning, I stop it here and come back if necessary later. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, audience, for actually reverberating what ma'am is trying to make us note. That yes, we are on a blending spree, but what to blend, how much to blend, when to blend, those, question marks and caution marks have to be properly noted. And thank you, ma'am. We are noting that strongly. And thanks for also bringing the point on training of trainers and the relation between state and union government on the policy making. From the policy preamble, I think we will like to also move to the policy to practice. So here we have in our panel Dr. Inu Rana, who is a senior business advisor with Western Sydney University, Australia. She has joined us virtually. Thanks, Dr. Rana, for joining us. She brings a lot of huge 2 decades of experience in managing businesses, consulting, advising business, supporting startups, and contributing to executive training and development and research. She has worked extensively in tech startup space in Sydney and teaches entrepreneurship to AR/VR students. I think this is one of the very interesting area where agri-education also has to move on. If the metaverse is evolving, probably education also has to cope up to that. And here we have Dr. Rana, with whom we'll like to understand how do we implement such evolving and innovative technologies like AR, VR, and e-learning in agriculture education. Can you please walk us through few applications which helps it make more industry ready? Making the agriculture education more industry ready through the AR, VR, and other innovative technologies. Over to you, Dr. Rana.
Thank you, Shuklaji. Thank you very much for inviting me. And if I'll take the liberty of broadening the question a little bit. So it's also about application of technologies in classroom. So, how AR, VR can be adopted in the classroom, but also I think as much given, what I've heard in the conference, it's also about entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is my background, apart from other things that I do. And I think that goes back to the point of the other panelists that they have raised, how entrepreneurship is very important. So in my opinion, there are obviously, immediate applications of AR, VR in teaching. And, but broadly, if we look at the application of technologies and bringing technologies and entrepreneurship into the classroom, I think there are 3 major benefits of doing that. And we'll come to the, how we can do that. But the 3 major benefits, I think, from my perspective, would be that when you're bringing advanced technologies into the classrooms and blending that with entrepreneurship, you're creating opportunities for the students. The sort of opportunities that you would want your students to take in future to make them, not only job ready, but as Professor Khosla mentioned, making them job makers. So advancement in education is the one immediate benefit. Then the next second benefit, from my opinion and from my perspective, is inclusivity. So how do you reach students in far and remote areas? And how do you make education more inclusive and bring that inclusivity into your classrooms? That to me is very, very important. And also I'm from Australia, but Australia, I'm in Sydney, but we also have remote communities, and we have students traveling from far regions of New South Wales. So how do we give them access to that education, for example? The third thing from my perspective is diversity. So again, Professor Khosla talked about, the majority of the tech ideas and startup ideas coming from non-agri students, and we see that in our work as well when we teach our students. So how do we have that diversity in the classroom so that we prepare our entrepreneurs? How do we have diversity in terms of, can we have global collaborations with other education institutions? Can we have collaborations with Netherlands, for example, or America, or Australia, for example? And can we bring their students into our classrooms in India? And what opportunities will that unfold? So I think these 3 things are the key when we are to design and when we are to rethink our education, especially through the lens of advanced technologies and entrepreneurship. We're doing huge amount of work in simulation-based learning, for example, and coming to the practical applications of AI. So simulation-based learning is a huge focus for Western Sydney University. And we are not only doing that in agriculture, but we are also doing that in other disciplines such as construction. So where you would want the students to get a diverse experience, and you would want them to engage with different technologies, I think that can be, these AR, VR, and other technologies can be applied so that can be done, that sort of experimentation can be done in a controlled environment. And again, it brings back the point of inclusivity and diversity, but it also allows for remote practical learning. And we have seen that the speaker just before me, Madam, she talked about, how COVID has impacted us and has, made some advancement as well. So we quickly, transformed our education from only classroom-based teaching to remote practical learning environment. So we did that adaptation, and all around the world, everyone did that adaptation. So I think there are other ways we can, integrate. And again, given my current work of bringing global partners together, how can we take our students to a remote farm in Netherlands, for example, or California or India? So all those possibilities are there for us to reach if we are to bring in and if we are to adopt the AR, VR, technologies, the interactive demonstrations with the emerging tools and equipments. That's another one. Now, I will just broaden my answer just a little bit, take a couple more minutes. So when we design or redesign our curriculum and our teaching and learning practices, then I think we have to keep two things in perspective. One is, of course, where the tech is heading, what advancements in AI, in AR and VR, but also where the world is heading, together, where the consumers are heading. The panelists before me raised the point of sustainability. How can we teach our students to be the future generations, future entrepreneurs, future agriculturists, and teach them entrepreneurship for purpose, for example. And I know, and from my experience and working with SCOST, I know Professor Ganai's team and Professor Ganai, they're working in that area as well. So, and we call that entrepreneurship for purpose. How do we not damage the environment, and how do we bring transparency across the the value chain in agriculture, for example. So I'm in Japan at the moment and interacting with the startup ecosystem here. There's a huge amount of interest and enthusiasm for food tech. And when we start talking about food tech, high value-added foods, then transparency comes into question. So can we apply blockchain technologies to bring that transparency through the entire value chain? So I think that's also very important for me. The last piece that I will touch upon is the work that we are doing in Western Sydney University and recently. So in terms of making food accessible, and in terms of food tech and where food is heading, we're doing a lot of work around farm to table. So we are very fortunate where we are based. We have huge farming land. WSU is the most reputed agriculture college and the first agriculture college in Australia. So we are very fortunate that we have access to all the technology. But what we have access to is a newly built airport that we have. So we're doing a lot of work on how can we grow those sort of foods that are in high demand, and how can we ship them across the world within 24 hours, so that we realize that dream of consumers that are wanting fresh food and fresh produce on their tables. So we call that farm to table, and huge work is happening in that. And how do we educate our students so that they take advantage of those emerging technologies and those emerging opportunities. So we also believe that the world is going through a massive transformation. There's a lot of disruption, but from disruption comes opportunities. And I think this is my closing message, that how can we find opportunities and how can we connect the world making use of these technologies. So I'll shut up here, and I will be very happy to take any questions later.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Rana. Thanks a lot for keeping it very precise and letting us know the bigger but precise picture where technology can take education to. Important to mention the simulation-based learning and diversity, inclusivity mentioned by you will be very important when we take the further course in this discussion. Thanks a lot. From here, I think we'll move on to the next panelist. And in order to move to the next panelist, I'll fall back to the earlier panelist, Dr. Rao. Dr. Rao pulled upon a very important point on training of teachers and how the faculties get, educated. So the next panelist brings a lot of experience in that, and we will like to know from the next panelist, Professor Perry Den Brock, on the teacher professional development and teacher learning as an integral component of our endeavor of making agriculture education future ready. So Professor Brock is a professor in Department of Social Science, Wageningen University, Netherlands. He is the chair of Education and Learning Sciences Group at the University and Research, and he also chairs the Food TU Center of Engineering Education. His research interests and expertise concern innovations in higher education, learning environments, teacher professional development, teacher learning. He has published several articles and books on these topics and supervised students in the domain of research. We look forward to you, Professor, to help us develop our views on teacher professional development and teacher learning as a part of making our agri-education future ready. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. Also, by the way, this morning with the keynote, and some of the comments I will make today actually will kind of link to what I also presented this morning. So I think if we are listening to all these changes, all these curricular changes, all these, the use of technology involving different actors in our education, that has huge implications for what teachers need to do. And that, of course, means that we really need to think well about our professional development of our own teaching staff. It's not a simple thing, so I will highlight a few things which I think are very important. So the first thing is, in what system are these professional development activities embedded? I think we all have promotion and career systems, tenure tracks. There are career opportunities. What I think is really needed, if we really mean this, is that education and teaching is considered very crucial as part of this promotion system. Right now, it's often research that dominates, but I think really we need to emphasize more and celebrate more teaching and teaching professional development. That I think also means that we need to be more flexible in how we set up our tenure track system. So of course, people can do both in almost equal amounts, research and education, but I think we also need to allow people to do more teaching and less research and the other way around. So that's very important. I think another thing is that our professional development systems, our teaching evaluations and research evaluations are very much, at least they were in the Netherlands, quantity oriented. So how many publications did you write? How many courses did you teach? How high was the satisfaction score of the students? And so on and so forth. Yes, that's important, but I think even more important now becomes quality and impact. It's about showing that we learn students new things, that we involve other stakeholders in our education and learning, that we have impact in society. So that requires another way of thinking and evaluation. Well, I think all these changes also lead to a lot of things that teachers potentially could or should maybe master. And I think it's impossible for one person to do this. So I think we have to think more in terms of teams. I think many of the innovations we propose, many of the changes basically make teaching and learning more a team effort, also for teachers. And that means that we can allow for more profiles in our teaching staff. Some people are good in lecturing, others are good coaches, others are good in working with stakeholders, networking. Why not allow that differentiation? Together we can, I think people can form a good team. Now, of course, that also means that we have to vary in our offer of professional development activities. So that means that I think, of course, there are core skills that every teacher needs to have. So yes, there need to be basic professional development activities, probably for our beginning staff, but also we need specialized courses. And maybe the more experience people get, the more they move up the career, the more we also need to think in a wider teaching impact. So at some point, people move more from course to curriculum. they move more from traditional teaching maybe to innovation. And I think it's very important that there is also an offer of educational leadership, educational innovation. Now that also means that next to the traditional offers we have in professional development for our teachers, we have to think in a variety of practices, communities of practice. I see a lot of leading universities now moving to innovation grants for teachers, teaching fellowships, maybe scholarships of teaching and learning. So allowing teachers, giving them extra time and money to innovate, but also to show impact, to evaluate. And of course, that also needs training, collaboration with, for example, education and teaching staff that are specialized in pedagogy and educational evaluation. Well, finally, I think that cannot be done by single universities. It also means that universities can specialize, and I think it's very fruitful if they collaborate in professional development. The moderator already said that I'm also chair of 40U Center of Engineering Education. Basically, it's a collaboration of universities of technology, and agriculture is considered a form of engineering in our country. But basically, it means that together we work on similar innovations, but we also open up our professional development for each other's teachers. We organize webinars. And again, I think the new technology can really help to open up, to broaden our spectrum of professional development, even to actors like, for example, David and Inu also mentioned, and some of the other panelists. If we collaborate with stakeholders, and we consider them important also in our teaching, they get roles in coaching, they get roles in assessment, why not also open our professional development activities more with them? It's also very enriching, I think, for our teaching staff. So, a last thing perhaps is collaborate across disciplines. If we mean that in our education, then it also means we need to do it in our professional development. So those are, I think, the 7 points I wanted to make. And I think it shows that it's not a simple thing, working on this professional development. It's really, maybe like with the education, it's an ecosystem we have to build up. So I think that's my take-home message for you all. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Professor. Thanks for very, very short but very important points to make, like teaching impact or team effort in teaching. The ecosystem approach, what we were learning from Dr. Ganai in entrepreneurship, is also important in teaching, and teaching impacts probably what you tried to make us understand. Thanks for those words. I think we'll come back to you if the time permits. With that, I think we are moving to the last speaker in the panelist, who is probably one of those stakeholders who is driving, leading, and implementing many of the education systems at the ground across the country. I mean, the league he represents, he is the Vice Chancellor of AAU Jorhat, Assam Agriculture Universities, Dr. Vidyut Deka. So Dr. Deka is presently VC at AAU, and he has a PhD from IRI in 2000. So he has, distinguished capabilities as teacher, researcher at multiple places like ICR Research Complex in NEH or in Joint Director ICR Complex in there only, or also as VCAU from October 2020. He has been at multiple places, and we, sir, will like to understand and get a lot of benefit from your experience that with your immense engrossed presence at university and being a part of the ICR agriculture education system, what preparedness and readiness do you propose for embracing these 3 E's that we are talking about today? At the ground level, at the university level, either it is entrepreneurship or employability or emerging technologies, the preparedness level and the different steps you would like to guide us.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Shukla. In fact, we are meeting for a very good panel discussion, making agriculture education future ready. Also, to be very precise, we are in a transitional stage to shift ourselves from linear economy into the circular economy. Probably all of you know when we talk about the linear economy revolves around take, make, consume, and dispose of. So that means in that particular economy, we really do not take care of making waste into the world. So when we talk about the circular economy, we talk about it revolves around made to be made again. So that means the waste has to be made the wealth. So looking to that particular dimension, looking the good example of India, because we have seen the green revolution. Now the green revolution era has to shift, the era has to be shift to the green commerce. So when we talk about the green commerce, India, we are already marching ahead, because if you see the data, last year, our total export was 400 billion US dollar, out of which 50 billion US dollar was from the agriculture. So that is precisely more than 12%. So to move that particular area, probably our entire ecosystem, we'll have to reorient the entire ecosystem. So when we talk about the ecosystem, what are the reorientation? Very precisely, Mr. Shukla has asked me a question. So what should be our preparedness for embracing the different technology available in the market? So when we talk about the emerging technology, if you search the Google or whatever it is, there are a lot many technology. But then if I really need to search, or if I need to identify, do we have any inventory available with us? Probably not. So our first and foremost job will have to be to prepare a inventory of very good emerging technology. That is number one point. If we have the inventory of technology, the next thing is, do we have the required infrastructure to translate those particular emerging technology into real business to catch up the word green commerce? Probably many of the universities, or for that matter, many of the states, we do not have the required infrastructure to translate these emerging technology into the implementable programs. The third is, do we have the really people having the real capacity to implement this particular emerging technology into actionable point? So that part also we'll have to look into. We really need to look into the proper capacity development program. Now coming back, when we talk about all those kind of things, the preparedness for the emerging technology, embracing emerging technology into the field of agriculture and allied. So at the same time, we'll have to prepare our students for entrepreneurship development. So when we talk about the entrepreneurship development, what would be our role? To be very precise, I would like to give you a case study of our university, Assam Agriculture University. Of course, as Shukla has rightly mentioned about, I am from ICBLE, but now I am serving as a Vice Chancellor of Assam Agriculture University. What we have done for entrepreneurship development in our university? Last year, we segregated our students in the Jorhat campus, 300 students. We exposed them to a psychometric test to identify whether they have the entrepreneurial mindset among them or not. Based on the psychometric test, we zeroed down 60 students who has fairly good score. After that, what we did, we took the personal interview. Then finally, we zeroed down to 40. These 40 students, now we are giving them proper training on entrepreneurship development through our incubation center. We have a NITI Aayog-sponsored incubation center in our university. So these particular students, when they will finally graduate, these 40 students again will take a lot of precautions, a lot of hand-holding. When they will go to final year students, they will complete their graduation, we will finally zero down only 10 students, from 60 to 10. So these particular 10 students will be real ZAM who can take up their own enterprise. We'd like to give them the proper hand-holding in a way so that they, in the end of the day, when they complete their graduations, they will not depend on a job in the market. Rather, they will look for their own employment, not a job seekers, but a job givers. And number two, to execute that particular plan, we have already worked out an ecosystem where teachers are become mentors. So to become a teacher's mentor, he or she should also be properly trained. So we have taken a program in our university, 75 of our teachers, more particularly young teachers, they are already being trained in one of the finest institutions of India, Entrepreneurship Development Institute of India, located at Ahmedabad. So these particular teachers, we have already given them the training of 1 week. They have come back. Now these particular teachers will be the mentor for the young students. From the second year, they will be trained for entrepreneurship development. So this is how we are trying to develop an ecosystem in our university. The second ecosystem we are targeting 1 lakh entrepreneur by the end of 25-26. We have designed 56 different courses, skill-oriented courses. That is by using the platform of ODL, Online Distance Learning Program. But you may ask me questions. Is it possible for skill development by implementing a platform called ODL? Then my answer is yes. Because we are blending ODL with a short-term practical training program. We have also developed 75 practical video which are available in already 36 out of which is available in Agri-Dig support of ICBLE. 75 practical we have developed. We have identified different courses. 54 I have mentioned. The duration varies from 10 days to 3 months, certificate course. So in 10 days program, the students, they may be under matric, they may be +2, they may be graduate. So if it is a 10 days program, 7 days they will be trained through ODL platform. At 3 days they will come back to our university system, be it in a KVK or a college. They will be giving them proper handholding, proper practical experience. If it is a 15 days program, 5 days they will come back and stay with us. If it is a 1 month, 3 weeks, ODL, 1 week, that way we have designed the particular program. And I urge upon all the vice chancellors, if we really go ahead with this, probably we can really create an ecosystem. This will not only help skilling the young people, at the same time, that will give a lot of revenue to the university system. I am targeting 10 crore revenue out of 1 lakh students. 10 crore revenue by 25-26. By next year, we are targeting 10,000 students. Our target is 2 crore revenue. So that one hand, we are skilling young people. On the other hand, we are trying to generate revenue. So that's how we need to create a proper ecosystem in a university system. But I would like to give a cautions. When we identify the students, we always need to speak them, do something, don't do something. Many of the entrepreneurs are pampered when they feel, oh, I am doing good business, but they always go to media. I have seen with my own eyes. Some of the very good entrepreneurs, they are making money like anything, but when they are being exposed to the people, the electronic media or print media, they remain busy in the media. Finally, they forget their core. Finally, they start declining in their own business. So we need to be cautious while grooming this particular young entrepreneur. Initially, at least for 5-6 years, they should be made understood that they should not go to media for publicity. Otherwise, they will be ruined like anything. So these are some of my random thoughts, which I feel it would be a very good kind of thing if all of us, we move together to really move the entire globe from green revolution era to green commerce. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Deka. I think for putting up a lot of examples and done there, seen that instances of having put a proper entrepreneurship and incubator system in place. That's really commendable. And the way you presented it to us is also inspiring for many of us. But the importance is, how do we scale it up? How do we replicate it? How do we keep it sustainable in the long run? And probably an institutional approach to it will be what we'll be looking forward in the sessions. So with the permission of Chair, sir, we have asked all the panelists to talk once. Should we take some questions from the audience with your permission?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think there has been a lot of interactive, a lot of interesting elaborations from the panelists. I'll request if anybody from the audience wants to ask any queries, they can raise their hands, and if somebody is there with a mic can help me.
Yeah, here.
Just a moment, I think.
Yeah. Mike. Excuse me. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can speak from there.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Lalit, and I'm head of engineering of a Swiss-based startup called Verizons. I have some key points related to the entrepreneurship, and I really want to give some kind of thrust on some of the cognitive process that we really want to translate through online or offline channels. And while discussing it with the ETH-based learning systems for primary and secondary education systems and higher education systems, I really feel that it is quite easy to translate some of the finer cognitive process instead of refining and iteratively doing corrections in the recognition processes. So while working in the academia and industry interface with JPL, NASA, ISRO, and Syngenta, Bayer Crop Sciences, and other agriculture companies, I really feel that it is not like we only give some kind of translations, keeping only the basic science component in the current scenarios. I really feel that people who are having their bachelor, master's, and PhD in computer science, they are failing to solve the real problems in practical applications. So my point here is if we can put basic science component with technology and data science, then it may solve the problem in a very comprehensive manner in real-time scenarios for industry applications also. And
Mr. Lalit, do you have anything to ask from the panel?
Yeah. I have a question to Professor Khosla also, and he, most of the times being from the electronics background, most of the times when I go to the biology, chemistry, then people used to say to me, what is your discipline? And it's not overlapping with their domain. But most of the times I really feel that it is not about where we are operating. If we are able to bring some kind of innovation, and then it is at the need of the hour that we must be thinking in a way with cross-functional capabilities. And the last point is I am also appreciating the point of view from Professor Nazir also, that he said it is not about the degree or the kind of age or something that we put while recruiting right people at right time for right purpose. So while working with all these multinational companies also, and I really feel that it is more important that we put right decision makers that can select the right people at right time and for right purpose. Thank you.
So one more.
Thanks, Mr. Lalit. I think
Dr. Dhir Singh.
Yep.
Yeah, Prasad. This side. On your left, please.
I just request to be precise and kindly ask the query.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
With an
you very
introduction in the beginning.
Yeah.
Your introduction.
No, I think it was a wonderful discussion we had. Probably we have to look into a shift from the traditional learning to a market or consumer-centric approach. I'll give an example. It's not only education which has gone online. We have all gone online, buying things online. Now, probably when you look into earlier days, we used to buy our food items from a grocery shop next door, but which was small quantity and consumed in a shorter period. Now we are buying it online, buying bulk, and now the thing is, there needs to be a shelf life enhancement is required. Now this is where the students have to be ready to address this situation, which has to be taken right from the learning stage. And there what we require is a integration and blending of the programs. Now, I have been talking earlier also, there's a thin line between integration and blending. Blending is a sort of you merge or mix or combine, but integration is in totality. You bring the whole thing in together. Now, for example, if you want to make agriculture education more practical, I think revisiting, as Dr. Sudha said about curriculum designing needs to be done quite effectively, not it's sort of a mix and match, but quite effectively to address the situation which is arisen because of this situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? There is a gentleman in the second row.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. My name is Dr. Sudhanand Prasad Lal from RPCU Busa. Sir, my question is to Ganesh, sir, who just mentioned one of the social entrepreneur who is class 10th failed basically, and he is adjunct faculty in his university because 10 years back or 1 decade back, the local tribes of Chhattisgarh who had been casting steel, and its purity was around 99%, were tried to be incorporated at BHU, but they failed to do it. Sir, so what is his name and what he is doing basically?
Basically, he's a businessman. His name is Mr. Abdul Hamid. He is basically in this automobile business. But then he thought that, actually I am getting a lot of money, earning a lot of money. Why should I not invest back into the society? So he has become a social entrepreneur, and he has said that in 1, 2 years, 3 years time, he would plant some 1 million trees. And his goal is Rahim Greens. He has given his name Rahim Greens. And then he has been as a visiting faculty to many universities in the US. And when we could see that a person from who cannot just speak so English so fluently, but is a visiting faculty to the US, definitely we, at his home place could just have him. Then we just rope him in, and then he's now becoming a very good, motivator for our students. And he teaches our students the purpose of the life. He says that I have a lot of money, I could just keep that whole money with me, but then I am reinvesting that whole money in the society. That's what we call as a social entrepreneur. And he has become a very good motivational person for us, to the students, that they can achieve anything in the life if they have a purpose in life. So that's also required for how should we transform our students to be the useful students, not only being very much skilled and having a lust for the money and the wealth. That was the reason for him. Thank you.
We can take the last question, sir.
Mr. Shukla at the back.
Yeah, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anchal. I'm from EY. I have a question for Dr. Bidyut Sideka. So you have mentioned during your presentation that you are targeting to 1 lakh students for entrepreneurship, and you have also shared the process of diluting those bright minds. I have just one question: that how is it happening? Is there a mechanism which is there in place in the university? Is there a dedicated body which is taking care of it? Who all are these people in that particular body? Is it the internal people, faculty members, or you have outsourced it? Because the roadmap is very clear, and I just want to understand that how is it happening? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yes, we have created a platform. Targeting 1 lakh students in next 5 years is a very difficult job. We have created a platform, Directorate of ODL in our university, and 50% of it we have outsourced, because with our internal faculty it may not be possible. But then even if we have identified 54 courses, we have just started with 4. We would like to go in a very professional manner. By 2024 end only, we are targeting 54 courses. So again, next 6 months, we are targeting 10, so that way we will be moving. Your other question was into the students' entrepreneurship. You are talking about that, right? So we have already an incubation center funded by Niti Aayog and ICBLE after, where we normally circulate among the budding entrepreneur different programs. They come to us once they are selected. They be with us for 4 months. During that particular 4 months period, we give them ask them to submit a proof of concept. When they give us the proof of concept, okay, if we find that this concept is very, very good, we tell them, okay, you work with it, and some of our faculty, they enroll them. And finally, when we are sure that this can become an enterprise, then we give them a grant. So grant varies from 5 lakh to 25 lakhs. That money we get it from ICBLE after. So that's how we are promoting entrepreneur. And to be very precise, so far, 10 of our entrepreneurs, they are making very good business. Very good business. One lady, she started her business with 500 rupees only when she came to us. We handled her. Today, she is earning 75,000 rupees per month as net profit. She does the business on vermicompost. Another boy, he is a pig farmer. We gave him 25 lakh rupees. Now he is a role model in entire state of Assam, who is trying very hard to give even the training to the young entrepreneur to involve themselves in the piggery farming. So that's how we used to give the training to the young entrepreneur.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I'm getting all hints from the chairman, sir, that we have to wind it up for the interest of time. So I'm with that, I think I'll thank all the panelists and hand it over to chairman, sir. Before that, I think I'll just like to sum up by saying that, sir, given the mandate of this panel, we try to touch upon all the important aspects like emerging technologies. We try to discuss and understand AR, VR, or the other food tech and other technologies which are in the space. We tried to touch upon the employability aspects, how the employability angle and the paradigms and the preambles are changing, either in the new job opportunities or what's the future of job market, the labor market. On the entrepreneurship aspects, probably we tried to learn, observe, and get few examples which have been replicated either in Kashmir or in AAU Assam or different other examples which are important in entrepreneurship. We also touched upon important aspects in policy changes in agri-education which can help us evolve the future of agri-education thanks to the esteemed panelists. And with those brief observations, I'll hand it back to Chairman, sir. Thank you, sir, for this opportunity to me.
Okay, thank you, the Chairman. Let me start with the unconventional way before thanking actually this, congratulating the work organizer as well as the this panel, eminent panelist. I would like to share one of the very important actually this conversation I had actually in a couple of months before with the Professor J.S. Rajput. I think Professor J.S. Rajput, all of might be knowing, he is the educationist as well as a former NCRD chairman. And the discussion was based on the new education policy. So he was sharing actually because he had a discussion with the first chairman who made the education policy. And he said that one remark that if this time I have been given a chance actually what we make the education policy in 60s, I should make the education policy for ethics, not what he made for the education for the infrastructure development. So what I wanted to mean to say, let me actually congratulate the organizer, and particularly the education department headed by the Professor R.C. Agrawal, at very right moment actually this concept and this workshop has been organizing to blend actually the thing. Now the question is what is the need actually and why? Because of need education policy comes and that's we are looking for the blending the thing. Very rightly actually this our one of the panelists, Dr. Ganai has said, why do we need this actually? I think there is the need is that we have a lot of actually the things, the population is growing, lack of job is coming, where our students should go. Now the first and next panelist is saying what we should just blend it actually, so I think that's very rightly pointed at the course curricula. Now what course curricula we have to be make it, and that all the panelists has been very significant, very important actually the view, what we should blend and how to blend to make the actually our age students for the 3 E's what we are actually. I have some actually because in the morning actually our Professor Pierre Gupta, Gautam sir has been said that the change is must and really the change is must. So any system, anywhere, any country, anyone is not going to be go with the cope up with the change. It's not going to adapt. So definitely this is very, very young, and that's why I congratulated the organizer that make this very important. So this change, and that's what change, how to blend this is very, very important. And for me, or any education, because we are discussing about the higher education. So higher education, if you look actually, because we are all from the university system. So we are looking for the university system. So university system means from the graduation to the PhD, if we talk in general. So what actually we have to be blend is that for me, I have a three important aspect I would like to flagship here, and that's first is the knowledge. If you are entering into the basic knowledge from very elementary school to university system, you have to be get the knowledge. First, for what knowledge we have to give, that's we have to be make a curricula. The knowledge should be in terms of the three P. If you look actually, we should be aware enough to get the knowledge that what purpose we are going to study. Third, actually, to this curricula should be into the skilling, so that actually entering into the university system, we should know what knowledge we have to get, that's awareness, and then that knowledge has to be converted into skilling so that we can go for three implement. I have a very important aspect to be shared, that's how to blend, and everything has been discussed very amicably as far as our analysis is concerned. I would like to support all of this because the three P's is there, emerging technology, like Professor Atul Gosla has what actually awareness, what new technology, emerging technology, our education. First of all, this education, what we're blending and we're discussing, it is not only for the agriculture. I think it is fit for any sort of the science, whether it's engineering is there or it's basic science or whatever it is. So this is emerging technology, we should be aware of that. And that's one system I would like to flagship here. And that's we should integrate in our education system. That we call knowledge. And again, I'm repeating the knowledge, awareness, and the skilling so that we can go for the three. And three is emerging technology. Means after the end of our education, we should have some emerging technology. Either we develop this technology we can sell, or we can make ourselves entrepreneurship. So this recently there is in technology development, again I'm telling you because I shared some of the important lecture of this. In worldwide now the education system lies on the TRL system, the technology readiness level. This technology readiness level is the first level of actually that you can conceive the project, and this is very important for industry as well as academia. That the readiness means if we enter into education system and we are going to be make any education, we should aware that where actually we have to be end up this. So that one level, the conceptualism we have to be in curricula, that our student, if entering into the graduation level, the curricula should be that where he is going to be end. And then when he is going to be end, the education get the knowledge, what awareness and technologies they should be developed, then that curricula should be into the actually developing a skill, that the skill should be developed. And once the skill is going to be developed by the specific curricula, and this is system from 1 to 9, and 9 is going to be developed at the end of technology. If you have this type of actually education system into the university system, in a higher education system, that is starting from 1 level to 9 level, and then all our students, if we emerge from this either technology or entrepreneurship or into the going to be a business, that could be really going to be a then change, and that's why it is very, very important. So I do agree with our one of the panelists, Madam Sudha, that we have to be curricular, have to be one and most important part of designing. So we should be focused actually on the curricula should be designed to at the end of the goal, like first education and new education policy, whether it is ethics or whether it is infrastructure. So with this actually, thanks actually all our organizers as a chairman of this session, thanks actually very, very important threes, and the very important and eminent panelists they have been making a roadmap. I hope at the end of this actually session, we'll come up with actually very specific roadmap, using actually specific pillar as our curricula to be end of the making the 3 Ps, so that our students should be a win-win situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dhir Singh ji. Now, I do not want to stand much between you and the lunch time. We are delayed almost 1 hour by now. But anyway, we had 7 panelists and wonderful discussion has taken place. Although because of time problem, we could not take many questions which are coming in your mind. But importantly, we discussed probably all the 3 E's. All 3 E's means emerging technologies, employability, and entrepreneurship, which we targeted for this session. And also, we tried to blend this session with some kind of policy discussion. Our worthy panelist Sudha Raoji, she tried to make some points. And we are very fortunate that three of our panelists who joined us in virtual mode, they are still there, and they have made wonderful points. I fully agree that education programs requires value chain in itself. So David made this important point. Living in the world of serious disruptions, certainly this was a bold statement, but certainly it is the need of time, a time where we are moving between certainties, uncertainties, stabilities, instabilities, and still with all dynamism we want to move forward. So if you talk during Vedic education, Vedic days education to now today's education, every time education faced this big challenge to moving between stability and instability. And of course, the biggest opportunity in the past also and today also in future also, rural agricultural business or rural business enterprises will be the biggest opportunities. Which can we top these opportunities by going trans-boundary, trans-disciplinary approach. And this could be the one way wherein we can bring industry in between, so that bringing industry will help us. All the universities should have definite tie-up with some kind of industries, so that really we will be able to achieve the goals and the kind of objectives we have in front of us, and this will lead to the real blending of education in future. But this needs to be done very, very carefully. I liked a statement made by Dr. Sudha Raoji that present situation is the best situation if you really want to bring blending in real perspective. So this is the time, real time, when Corona was there, lockdown was there, we learned so many lessons even during those odd things. And with all new things, new mind and new realities, we are moving forward. And therefore, we should understand the blending itself in depth and dimension. Blending is not a simple word. Really, she was very kind enough to make this point that blending means some synthesis. With synthesis, we can go for blending. So blending itself is a synthesis. Unless we have that kind of mindset, we cannot move with this kind of ecosystem approach on ground. Vidyut was very, he has made very important point from linearity to circularity. The world, entire world, now there is no linear approach, even for blending also, there is no linear equation. You just place the values of x, y, z, and you will get D or C. It's not so. Neither some polynomial nor quadratic, it will not work this way. So there is no linearity, no quadratility, no polynomiality, but this is a kind of circular economy or circular motions are there all across. Even in our personal life, this happens. The same thing is happening globally also. And that is why where we considered experience as an important aspect of all learnings, because Indian philosophy, the Vedic philosophy says there is a great difference between knowledge and information. Shreyu hi jnanam abhyasaj, jnanat dhyanam vishishate, dhyanat karma phalatyaga tyaga shantiranantram. This is the philosophy which came from Vedic period. Even in Bhagavad Gita also the same philosophy is there. So with this philosophy, unless we understand the difference between information and knowledge, what we call Gyan today or knowledge today, it's not that simple. Once we do by ourselves, all with entrepreneurship, all the skills, we acquire skill, develop skill, and then keep donating all the skills. Unless you go through all this complete change, the jnana is not complete. And that's why we are talking today of this blended learning. And for that, proper capacity would be the way forward. And one very nice experience, what Vidyut Dekaji has shared with us, it was about ODL. It appears very small experience, but it's very, very important. And also try to understand, he's talking of northeastern region, where really this has a big meaning. All remote areas, reaching to every individual is very difficult. So with these all positivities, there is every possibility that we will be moving forward, and we should move forward with all positivity, but taking due precautions. So with these words, I would like to stop here and would like to thank the organizers, particularly Dr. R.C. Agrawalji and whole team for giving this opportunity, and I'm thankful to all the panelists for making wonderful points. Thank you so much, each and all. Thank you. Namaskar.
So I thank the chairs, co-chairs Dr. Suresh Kumar Chaudhary and Dr. Dev Singh for excellently conducting the panel discussion on making agricultural education future-ready with emerging technologies, employability, and entrepreneurship, and beautifully summarizing the proceedings. Thank you, sirs. I thank Dr. Guna for your wonderful moderation, and also all the panelists, Dr. Deka, Dr. Ganai, Dr. Kosla, Dr. Sudharao, Dr. Inurana, Dr. Brock, and Dr. David, for having been present here physically, and the last three for joining virtually. Now, I invite the co-chairs, Dr. Suresh Kumar Chaudhary and Dr. Dev Singh, to give a memento on behalf of the organizers in appreciation of the participation for the panelists. So I request the co-chairs, Dr. Atul Kosla, so Dr. Sudharao. Dr. Deka. And Dr. Ganai, sir. Sir, this next memento is for our moderator, Dr. Gunanand Shukla. So I invite the rapporteurs. Dr. Gosla. Dr. Atul Kosla. दे दिया. So besides this, there are three panelists who have joined online. Dr. Inurana, Dr. Brock, and Dr. David. We will make some arrangements to reach that memento on behalf of the organizers. So Dr. Ashraf Haq and Sapna Nigam, please come on the stage. They are the rapporteurs for the session. Thank you for your services. Now I invite our national coordinator, national director and DDG Education, Dr. Agrawalji and Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Director IASRI. Please come on to the stage. Sapnam, Madam Sapnam Nigam. Sir, I invite the organizers. Pardon? Yeah, co-chair. So I request our DDG Education and Dr. Rajendra Prasad to give memento to our co-chair, Dr. S.K. Chaudhary sir. And I also request the organizers to give a memento to Dr. Deer Singh. Thank you all. And I also thank the participants for their patient hearing and the entire audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ramasundaram. Now it's time to give a token of appreciation to our convener, Dr. Ramasundaram. I would request Dr. R.C. Agrawal and Dr. Ranjan Prasad to kindly hand over the memento as a token of appreciation to Dr. R. Ramasundaram.
यह दुनिया का ज्ञान, यह ज्ञान की दुनिया